Welcome back to the Skiff. We're here live in Istanbul. It's a little loud in the middle of the bazaar here in Biaglu, but hopefully it's cool with you audio-wise for the people out there with our viewers all over the world, by the way. We're getting a lot of viewers in India, in Germany, in South Africa, Australia, and really appreciate that support. The show is really important and effective and worthy of news in all those countries. So thank you for the new viewers. We really appreciate that. And if you're a big news consumer, try whatfinger.com. Put them in your daily scan along right after CDM.press, where you need to check several times a day. But Whatfinger is a great aggregator. They help us out a lot, and they put a lot of our content out there. So please visit whatfinger.com. I want to run through a few stories, then we're going to bring in Tom Teague and talk markets. But today is, I guess this is July 30th. I'm Todd Wood, your host, and this is your mission brief. Israel is losing the PR war. We saw that in the cold open, and we're going to dig into this story over the next few weeks and try to find out really what's happening in Gaza, in Israel, and bring you what you need to know to make smart decisions and develop your opinion on that issue. They are noticing the Republican Party of Florida tyranny. Kat Stansel will be on in the second hour. We're going to talk about that, but that's a biggie because what Florida, the RPOF has been doing in Florida is not cool. They're keeping the grassroots out of politics and in a very tyrannical way. And it's not helping anyone. And the leadership of the GOP is just kind of ignoring it. But we're not at the Miami Independent. And you can find a lot of that with Chris Gleason and also Kat, who's going to be on the second hour, who is all over this at miamiindependent.com. So please check that out. Israel says they're going to annex Gaza. That's a thing. Ben Gvir in the Knesset has said it over and over and over again. The Knesset has voted to do it once. It looks like they're going to, but they need a bigger majority, I think. But that may happen. And will Trump go along with this? I don't know. Well, this is a story that really nobody else is talking about the way we are. And again, we're early on a lot of these stories, like the election fraud, like the money laundering, like the vaccines, like Ukraine, like Armenia. We're out in front, but you're going to know and you're going to be smart. One that really bothers me, USAA, United Services Automobile or Administration or something like that. It's insurance for military. I used it 35 years ago. It was a great institution, great for military insurance, banking, all of it. But it's been destroyed with the woke virus, and it's still, they're refusing accountability there. We're going to talk about that later in the show. And there's talk of ending the Ukraine war from multiple positions. So we're hopeful on that. We're going to stay on it to try to end the killing. We're going to have Pete Blaber on later this week, and we'll do another Ukraine sit rep. But you need to know what's going on and keep the pressure there to get the killing stopped. So I'm going to bring in Tom Teague now. He's been patiently waiting. Tom, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How's turkey?
Turkey is hot, man. Hot.
Best food in the world, man.
Oh, it is the best food. I went out last night. I'm like, I got to have some kebabs, man. Rolled into town. I got to do some kebabs. Where can I get them? So, but I was disturbed by the level of thievery here. I mean, maybe it's just because it's a tourist area. I mean, the taxi drivers trying to charge us 3 times the price and just really in your face.
It's a bizarre, it literally is a bizarre mentality.
Yeah,
totally. It's just hustling. Yeah.
How much you can steal from the other guy. You know, there's a bar in Alaska, Chilkoot Charlie's, and the motto on the wall is, we steal from the other guy and pass the savings on to you. I mean, that's what's happening here for sure, man.
Yeah.
So look, I wanted you on because you wrote a great article on the Fed recently on the makeup of the people in the Fed. Trump outed Powell kind of in your face in the building project. There's talk, Bessent is talking of restoring or reimagining the Fed. What do you think is going on there, man?
Well, I think that the big picture is I believe, and you see in it Europe, like this age of MMT is where we evolved. The Fed's been a big part of this. There was a lot of chatter that, some of the shenanigans that was going on over in Japan with, former trade deals and stuff were kind of pushed into place by the Fed. I think the Fed's been sort of at the front and center of this. This idea that the private sector is directly competing with the public sector, with the government, it's a real thing and it's a problem. And if you look at you know, if you look in that frame and you go back like a few years, what you realize is that like every time the private sector starts heating up, it costs the public sector more to borrow money, and they slam on the brakes. So this is what Europe's been doing, and it's dragged European economies across the board down. And I think, you know, we're thankfully getting towards the end of it. But I think that, you know, the treasury.
How do you see that happening, though? I mean, if we're getting to the end, we still got all that debt we got to deal with.
Well, the only way we can possibly deal with that debt, and this blows my mind that most people don't realize this, is we're clearly not going to get there from just austerity alone. I mean,
Right.
If you have a recession and people believe that the Fed should keep rates restrictive, and we go into a recession that's, you know, caused by the housing turn down, because, you know, there's a relationship between housing prices and consumption, right? If you start losing money on your house and your equity goes to crap, your consumption's going to get taken out, right? So, and high mortgage rates, it stops people from consuming as well, right? So that's going to hit at some point. Now, if that happens, we're not going to actually have a budget surplus. We're going to spend more money. We're going to borrow more money. So any kind of recessionary period means that we're going to run bigger deficits. So the only way to really get out of this is to get the economy kickstarted. And, you know, like Besant says, we should be growing at greater than 3%. The GDP print today, if you look down into the depths of it, it was because we had no imports. That's why. That gets basically taken out. So, you know, imports, because of tariffs, were clearly very, very weak, and exports were kind of weak, which sort of offsets that a little bit. But it was the import side that really that made the number look better than imports get taken out. And it made the number look a lot better than it really was. And if we go back a quarter, that was why it was really weak, if you remember. But, you know, the only way that we're going to get out of this mess is to grow the economy really fast. And it seems like the Fed is the biggest impediment to doing that. And the mentality of the Fed is kind of a central planning mentality. And I think, you know, you're hearing that. And as I wrote in that article, it's being echoed by a lot of people on both sides. You know, you got criticism from Larry Summers, you got criticism from Mohamed El-Arian. I think most people are generally, you know, of the view that the Fed needs to change the way that it's moving, its models, its focus on DEI and, you know, on climate change and all that stuff, and get really kind of into the new age, into the area that we got to get rid of this debt through growth. And I think that's what the Treasury clearly thinks.
Well, you're right. It's the only way out. So do you deflate some of that away? I mean, the green or the gold card can pay off some of it. The tariffs can pay off a lot of it. But what do you think? How do you?
Well, sadly, we could have deflated some of that away, but we didn't, because Janet Yellen front-ended everything. You know, she put, instead of borrowing at the long end during the really low rates we had during COVID, she borrowed in the short end of the curve. So it doesn't really get deflated away as quickly. But I think that, you know, one is there's been this, like when you get to like bonds and everything sort of past 7 years, it's really not directly under the control of the Fed. It's kind of more free markets. They don't set any of the rates. They can go in and support it and do like yield curve management and stuff like that, which they haven't been doing. They've been unwinding overall. But, you know, I think that the key here is to really change the spending patterns. Obviously, taking all this money in from tariffs is going to be a big help in that. And I think that's surprised everybody. And the impact and the inflationary impact has been minimal. So I think that's a positive thing. But I think, you know, as the U.S. grows, we're gonna grow faster than our debt does. And, you know, every year, regardless of sort of what the tax rate is, the government takes in about 18 to 23% of GDP in taxes. And if you want people to pay more taxes and not disrupt the economy, well, the obvious thing is to grow the economy. And then you're going to get more money in taxes. And if you go back to like Clinton, when we balanced the budget, Clinton cut capital gains. We had like the biggest windfall in taxes in history at that point. So like, it's not necessarily like a lot of the left sees taxes as a punitive way of like wealth redistribution and getting at people, but that doesn't make the economy work for everyone, right?
Yeah. What about, you mentioned tariffs. I mean, the EU, I want to bring this article up. Medvedev, the former president of Russia, said Trump crushes Europe in the trade deal. He's right, isn't he?
Yeah, it looked like that to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I also think it's another. So, like, you know, if you, this is kind of a weird example, but if you go back during COVID, when you had states that were operating independently, like Florida reopened early, it made the states that did, you have this competitive marketplace, and so you don't have some centrally planned outcome, and it exposes the weaker side. I mean, these tariffs in Europe, one thing that you saw is like Marine Le Pen. I mean, she's not my favorite person because she's not that much different than the far left in a lot of ways. But she was like, we basically gave the German automakers, you know, a win at the expense of French agriculture. So you're starting to see, like, within the EU, discrepancies, and they're not really happy with it at a sort of nationalist level. Like, these are all big EU bureaucrats that are doing these deals. I was very surprised. Again, you know, I think that, and this is kind of a conspiracy thing, but I think the US has enabled these bad trading deals over the years because it's a way of sort of growing this, like, centrally planned, like, Fabian socialist BS in a petri dish over there, and allowing them to do that. It's the same thing when they're not picking up their bills for NATO. It's like, we're sort of like growing this, like, socialist thing over there to see if it could come over here. And I don't think that's by accident, personally. But I think this trade deal was but I think this trade deal was obviously a big win for the US. You know, a lot of these things, these, like, numbers of 750 billion of energy and 600 billion of defense, I don't know, you know, what does that look like? Does that actually come to fruition, or is that just something to get a deal done? I mean, I think
there's a lot of people saying there's no way they could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to be somewhat, you know, cynical about whether all this investment actually takes place in the end, and if their feet are held to the fire.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
But I think on the surface, reversing some of these bad trade, you know, numbers, and it's like Japan. We announced a trade deal with Japan. We had a quota on rice. We never even got close to hitting that quota. They weren't even letting us in there. So, like, I don't know how, you know, I think it's like you have these big things, and let's see how they get enforced. Clearly, I think with Trump and his administration, there's going to be a lot more pressure to meet those terms of these deals, but it does look like a big win for America.
So you mentioned something that's interesting. You brought up the nationalistic aspect in the EU. I agree with you, and I've never thought about the theory you had, but I do think the EU was a big experiment in something really dark. And
it's the WEF, it's the globalist control. It's a bunch of technocrats who make a decision that, you know, climate change is so important that we've got to alter our energy grid, and that we've got to all go to, like, renewables and this stuff. And it's so they can get control of it. It's central planning 101. And it blows my mind that people don't understand that. And central planning is a disaster. It always is, because it's one size fits everyone. And even China, like during Deng Xiaoping, they didn't have as much of a central planned economy because each region was given some autonomy. Like, what they're doing in Europe is having this central planning thing, and it's, you know, it's like the bar you described in Alaska, right? You're taking
Yeah.
money from one guy and giving it to another.
Yeah. Well, so you think I mean, that's a good point, that the nationalistic, I guess, impulses in each of these European countries, I mean, could grow and cause a problem for the EU itself.
It certainly will. I mean, I'm sure that, and I haven't seen the details of the impact on agriculture in France, but I can tell you from living in France for many years, they're not going to be happy if it's not to their advantage, and they'll end up like, you know, dumping manure in Paris and burning tires and shit like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what about, while we're on France, I had Thierry Laurent on a few days ago, but what is going on with this Brigitte thing? I mean, did the French, are they on to this? Because it looks pretty obvious she's a man. I mean, what do you think? I mean,
you know,
Candace
it's strange
all over
to me that like he's actually trying to go after Candace Owens in court, because it's like the Streisand effect. You know, if you don't want people to think that your wife's a man, just laugh it off, right?
Right.
And I don't know, he seems to be going to, you know, drawing a lot more attention to the subject. I mean, personally, I have zero idea. And I've seen all the pictures, you know, all the photographs. I have no idea. I mean, I generally think, I generally think that, you know, it's everyone's right as a journalist to make any kind of like, you know, best guess based on evidence that they want to. And I think it's going to be hard to enforce. I just think it's going to end up making him look, you know, bad. He should just leave it alone. But I don't really have an opinion on it.
Well, I don't know if she's a man or not, but what gets me is, I mean, and nothing's refuted Candace's assertion that there's no history prior to like 30 years old.
Right.
There's
right.
still, like,
which is definitely
pictures,
fishy,
you know?
right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. What else? What is happening in France? I mean, how is the economy doing? I mean, you just got back, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that I think France has its own nuclear energy, which sets it apart from everyone else. You know, Merkel was a complete disaster. She was supposed to be a conservative. She was a socialist. You know, the immigration stuff, it's hit Germany really hard. I think France is dealing, you know, with some of that itself, but I don't think, you know, I think France has always been a little bit more independent and culturally independent from the rest of Europe. And because of its low energy costs relative to the other countries, I think it's doing fairly well. It's definitely got, you know, a lot of highly educated, really smart people who tend to stay in France. I mean, some of them move, some of them go other places and work in, you know, Silicon Valley and this stuff. But I think, you know, I think France has probably gone through earlier than other countries. This is just big picture stuff. A lot of this socialist stuff. And I think France is sort of moving, and even Macron, like he took away the wealth tax that was on all assets. And that was a really smart maneuver. And I think he's tried to make a lot of reforms because, you know, like you can't continue to pay people like huge retirements and allow them to retire like super early. It's just not going to work if you don't have the cash flow from the taxpayer, and you don't want to choke the economy. It's like what I'm talking about earlier with the US. And so I think France is in a much better position, I think, you know, longer term. And, you know, we'll see. I think this is putting strain on the EU though, because it's making people realize that they all have like different objectives and different economies. And, you know, it's creating a lot of like sort of populist nationalist, you know, like enthusiasm.
So you're still active pretty well in the capital markets. So what are you hearing on the street? Are people optimistic? Are they excited? Are they worried?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are. I think markets are definitely overbought here. If you look at since lows, I mean, you know, AMD's practically doubled, Nvidia's doubled. You know, like, and there's a lot of people chattering that, you know, the market. A lot of people use this like Case-Shiller thing of market cap to GDP. This is stupid because our companies are selling, like our tech companies have a huge portion of their profitability coming from overseas. Apple, Google, Meta, all these guys. So you can't really look at that kind of valuation and say, wow, it's just super expensive, because on a PE basis, they're not like completely nosebleed. I just think the momentum has been very, very good, and we're probably due for some kind of pullback. And, I think if you look at the economy overall, you're seeing obviously a big slowdown in housing. You're seeing pressure from housing. You're not getting enough new housing, so rents aren't really coming down, which is not good for CPI. You're also seeing, like, on the jobs numbers in June, you're seeing, meaningful retreats from what we've seen before, back to like 2023, 24. So you're definitely starting to see some chinks in the armor. And if they don't cut, I mean, I think the market is of the view that we're going to have rate cuts this year. I think Powell is, because of his like sort of globalist thing, I think he doesn't want to have growth. And I just don't understand that. I think you can have growth without inflation. And I think, it's been proven before, that whole theory, the Phillips curve, that's been debunked during Trump's first term. So I think you can have growth, but he doesn't seem to want it. If he does, I don't think there's any chance. But if people start getting the view that they're not going to cut in September, I think markets are going to sell off.
Yeah.
Wow. Clearly.
Well, Tom, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, man.
I know you're back in the saddle, but thanks, man. We'll see you again. Take care.
You got it, man. Take care.